whether it is a person making key rings, investment in financial advice. That is a solution to a problem, a knowledge gap problem, and a direction-based problem.
Choice between survival and resilience. Now, if you are in a survival mode, you do what makes you survive for now. And next week, the things that you're trying to survive from are different. So you also change next week to try and survive next week's circumstances.
By impact, integrity, and the value we create for others. So I invite each of you to engage, collaborate, and dream bigger. May today mark the beginning of lasting partnerships, shared prosperity, and kingdom impact. Thank you and welcome to the Breakfast Connect. God bless you.
Patrick David, another author, in his book, Your Next 5 Moves, says that write down your processes. Then commit to getting rid of 2. Remove them. Because sometimes in our processes we're overcomplicated. And that's about to become very important and very expensive. Because the next P is people. In your business, if you are a startup, as a show of hands, who is a startup founder? Maybe it's not a startup anymore. Who was a startup founder? Anyone here? Who's got a side hustle over and above the job they're doing right now? Okay, if you have your hand up for a side hustle, you're a startup founder. Congratulations. Well, your life will be riddled with anxiety and stress and maybe a bit of happiness at the end of that story. The next P, we've got product, we've got process, and now we're talking people. People, people, people. The greatest investment you'll ever make into your business is the most expensive mistake you'll ever make. Understanding that you have a product and you have defined your processes and then matching the people you need to those processes is critical. And it can't happen in any other order. I speak to so many people who talk about the growth of their business by telling me how many people there. Hi, I'm John. I'm an executive. We've got 400 people. Wonderful. Did you need 400, John? Are you spending too much money, John? Are you hurting people's careers by putting them in jobs because they needed a job, but you're not fostering their growth into what they should be because you are not clear of what process and task they're about to perform? Right? Maybe we've all been in that job. You got the job at the big brand, you were really happy, and the guy said, you can help me solve my problems, but I can't give you a job description. Anyone been there? I've been there and been the guy giving the job with no job description, so I get it. Product. What am I selling? Process. What are the steps necessary to get my product to the market? People. Which people do I need to carry out those tasks? We live in a world of very, very fast increasing technology. Very fast increasing technology. If you have not defined your processes before you go after your people, you're going to carry a very big bill when you realize the knack of that. Yes? Kiaran, why are you telling people not to do jobs? I'm not doing that. I'm saying let's create sustainable businesses by being aware of what is needed to deliver our products. So we hire the right people in your jobs that are needed with a skill set that you do not have to help your business scale. Non-partner origination. Final key is progress. Progress. So we've got the product, we have the processes, diligent about it. We've hired the right people for the right processes, and now we're going to talk about progress. Progress is when you sit with your ambition and you say, I'm going to make a Kiaran business. And your ambition at first might have been, I could just make enough money to pay the rent and the Kiaran business. It would have achieved its goal. If you do that, that's exactly what you'll achieve. You'll pay your rent. But every business needs a long vision. You deserve a long vision. Your life deserves for you to create a long vision for the ambition that you're about to put to work. Does that make sense to everyone? Do you know the Jewish community and the Islamic community, the business communities, have one principle that they share? I'm not sure they share other things. I'll say it another day. The one major thing is that they build businesses for the third generation. And we have to conceptualize what that means. Remember Victor Cohen. Victor started Cohen Textiles back in the 80s and 90s, and then Waverley Plastics and what we know now. And Victor was a wonderful man. And Victor drummed it into me that anything you are doing is not for you. It's not even for your kids. It's for their kids. So today's cash flow problems, pale in comparison. Today's monetary policy worries, pale in comparison to how well my great-grandchildren will benefit from the assets that I'm about to build. And if we take that mindset in our businesses, the diligence that we take to clarifying our product, to building really good processes, to removing 2 of those processes, to finding people who can help me build my legacy, only happens if I have the ability to see to what that business might look like in 3 generations. If I want all the multitudes of great-great-grandchildren that I'm going to produce in my life to only pay their rent, or maybe that's a bit of a fix. I was told the other day why the Shona culture described the height of a child by putting your hand upside down. I didn't know this. You were going to laugh at me. I didn't understand. And I was told by the person that described it to me, he said, if you describe a person's height, you should put your hand facing up, because it shows that they're still got potential to grow. But if you put your hand down, you're going to be cursing that person's life. And at first, as a silly white person with no culture, I laughed. I was like, that's dumb! And then I started thinking about it. I said, actually, we do this in business so often. We build a business to meet the need that is based on the poverty mindset you might be carrying today. So we built a product. We have an ambition to solve problems. We've broken down the processes. We've hired the right people. And we've given it a future far beyond what our current problem has. If you can take the time to do that and keep the diligence to doing that, your board meetings will get shorter. Your pitches will get sharper. How you negotiate good and bad sales will get very clear. Because there is such a thing as bad business. And desperation brings us to make bad business decisions. Yes, I'm sure we've all been there and see a little pain in people's faces as well. If you can use this framework like I've done, like we've done as a company, means that when things get noisy, in 2022 we had a terrible cash flow. We thought the business wasn't done. We thought Monday morning we were robbed on Friday night, Saturday morning we were crying. We thought Monday people are going to rush to come get their money out of our business, and it's gone. It never happened. It never happened. And this allowed us to come back to what are we doing here? Why does agency exist? Why do I exist? What's my solution to the world? So if you can take anything from that, I'd appreciate it. Product, what are you selling? What problem are you solving? The processes, how I deliver it, the people, the support I need to build it, and what progress am I projecting now? What future am I allowing myself to give my business? Good luck. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the wonderful speech to us and inspiration that has come to us all. The next segment is I'm going to ask you all to make a business card. Have all your business cards brought by the others. So now, what I'm going to do now is ask any business card from here. And you're going to come here, I'm going to give you a minute, you're going to pitch your company to the pitch.
Saw some people putting 4 cards in.
It's the chances.
Gabriel Vututek, Gomula Construction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gomula Construction entirely in building, civil construction. We also cover renovation of residential, industrial, and commercial projects. We are also specialized in project management. We offer funds away in project management services to you. So Gomula is a one-stop shop in terms of we also do property development, buying space, develop space, and then we sell so that we deal with your accommodation problems. We are still at the stage of rent out, we also do renting. We are also at the stage of acquiring or buying those houses. We are also able to offer you terms so that you also are able to acquire those houses. So communal construction is on your preferred construction. Thank you so much.
So Dr. Masya Mangiza, who is a specialist pediatrician and neonatologist.
All right, my name is Kiaran Knight. I am a pediatrician, neonatologist. In my faculty, when my area was not advertised, just telling you what I do. I studied pediatrics, which is about babies, and I also specialized in newborn babies. So I'm what is called a neonatologist. We run a small neonatal unit in Stanley. We will take care of sick, small babies. So babies who are born prematurely, that are small, or babies who are sick. We take care of them. We work with 3 newborn babies, them to the country, and we work together. I also have a pediatric practice where I follow up babies after the age of 2 years, which is at 150 days, babies at the hospital, in the birth hospital. And I'm also a consultant in central hospital.
Anything that you want to ask of anyone to ask anything to know? Maybe that you want to try it with any babies, something.
The question.
Okay.
Just a quick one. What inspired you to do this kind of work?
So, to be a doctor, because my father, I spent most of the I was scared that I wanted to be a pharmacist. But once I got into it, I really enjoyed it. And I love babies, so I just thought I wanted to be a doctor. That's why I got into pediatrics. And as part of my pediatric training, I got a chance to work twice a year, and I worked in one baby unit. I saw how babies survived, small, tiny babies, 700, 800 grams survived in France. And this I think that is a lot in life. So that's been inspired me to go and study babies. And I must say, at our small units of unit and we have as small as 85 grams survived. So that's like a dream come true.
Kune machembera panapa kuti kana nwayo mwana yawira mukati swakumbuya murapeka rapya. Can you explain on that?
So Nora is basically even spontaneous. It's just a gap in the baby's scalp. Because the baby's head is growing. So there's a gap which allows expansion. So I'm going on to Nora. But you don't need to do anything about Nora. If I never question, if I never say, for the first 18 months, the only thing to note is that is a diarrhea or vomiting and dehydrated. It's not going to be as a sign of energy and assistant of an or manaka have as infection with meningitis. You know what I'm shooting at as a sign of energy, and then I was and otherwise locally to which to get to the north.
Let's put our hands together and dramatically become the
Thank you very much. I really appreciate. I have to acknowledge the president of my church. Yeah. Really respect you. I know that there are more seniors, so you didn't mention. Maybe instead of calling me a doctor, because I'm a man, I suppose that's professional. I also have been with the other church. So I hope. I actually planned this morning to come with my family, so that after this we fellowship together. Unfortunately, we got a funeral in the family, and then soon after my presentation, you may see me again. Alright, so no, thank you very much. I had prepared a small presentation But in terms of the arrangement that's here, maybe I will see the presentation, I'll talk about it, I'll get it circulated. And then we can always look at it. Before I get into that presentation, in summary, because we're talking about foundations of businesses in technology, thank you very much. 4 P's and the foundations are about, so what is business about? That's what I mean. In the context of today and into the future. In the context of how you make that business resilient and foster sustainable trust into the future, which means you are not doing temporary things. But I'm also going to talk about what sort of choices are always very important to make as you lead your own business as an entrepreneur, or as you, like myself, are leading a business that's monetized already. I've seen them, that's what I do. So there are a few choices that you make, a few decisions that you make, which will either make your business succeed or can actually break your business. Now I'll talk a little bit about some of the principles, and it will not be a very good thing to do and not talk about a few principles. I am also learned it's read my previous English. So that's what I'll probably do. So if you can just go to the next slide, you may not see it, but so business still remains the same. If you go to old times, come to modern times, business is about maximizing returns. You're trying to get value, but you're also trying to minimize risk as you do that. Now I mention this because oftentimes we focus just on the upside, which is how do I maximize it? And that tends to come naturally. Because you set up a business, you want to set targets of how much growth you want to create over a period of time. But we remind ourselves that there is also the need to minimize risk as a part of the foundational and behavioral and practice that you will need to do. You also, I'll just highlight that when you look at a business and you are putting in your money, you are looking for that money as a resource to make more money. So this is obvious, isn't it? Right? But the reason we manage risks is that some of that money you put in can actually be lost, and often it does get lost. And we learn as we lose money, so that this next time we're not losing money. In the modern world, we are looking at, so how do you also conduct your business responsibly amongst the people that you operate businesses with, in relation to your customers, in the context of your communities, the communities that you serve, but also in the context of regulations, rules that apply. So that's just a quick one. Go to the next one. I don't want to minimize time here. But there is a broader leadership context against these well-established principles: to make money, to protect the money, to learn from the mistakes, and to continue to sustain growth. There are a few leadership issues that we have to think about today. In the context of today, there is faster change in the environment. Today's world is globalized. When you set up a business here in Zim, chances are somebody is setting up a similar, exactly what you're doing here in Zim, but also somewhere in India to access Zim's market. So the competitive landscape, or the way we look at where are we playing, must be lifted to a global scale. We are also seeing that there are emerging trends in strategic leadership which you will always hear about, which were not topical in the past. In the past, you set a business, you've got your things there, you could relax for 10 years once the business is running and it runs itself. Today, we are talking about faster change, demanding agility, demanding responsiveness. So each time and every day, you're thinking about what has changed, what's new that I need to respond to. In the things that have changed, you are seeing new opportunities, you are seeing threats to manage. In the same spirit of maximizing returns and minimizing risk. I won't spend too much time with this, but we are also seeing something that I think is very important in today's business, which is the way that we define value. We used in the past to really predominantly focus on money and wealth. But today, sustainable businesses are saying, what value am I creating? Yes, in terms of financial outcomes, but what impact am I making on the stakeholders that I serve, who may be the employees, who may be customers, who may be the communities around you. And over time, we've seen that being emphasized and supported by even rules and regulations to say, what are you doing in the community? And when we started, when we were small, it's a very good thing to do, to be conscious about a broader sense of the value you create in your business. The other one that I would probably highlight is just the need to always ensure that when you look at the change that's happening in the market, in the spirit of needing to respond, you're also looking at your capabilities. When we started 2 years ago, capabilities are resources, competencies that you have which allow you to do business. We are always needing to look at that, because today, some of the capabilities are quickly expiring and they need to be replaced or changed. Like Kiaran said, you may actually need to shift totally. But that's if you're conscious that you have to also look consistently and continuously get your capabilities. It's similar for capacity. That's what the third one in our. So the leadership responses that are being demanded today to establish our businesses in a resilient manner include embracing sustainability or resilience. So when we start today, we must be thinking about, Kiaran said, third generation, but the long term. How do I ensure that the practices, the decisions, the choices I'm making today are going to sustain my business for the long term? And you are also seeing a theme that says value, which I described in my previous slide, is the broader sense of value. A conscious way of monitoring that and saying, am I delivering it to the stakeholders? So customer centricity is becoming key thing. We are also seeing purposeful employee engagement. Kiaran spoke about that. We are also seeing the need for transparent investor management. And I know that when you are starting, you may be the sole investor, and that's what you may think. But there are also other people that are invested in your business. They may not have put money in, but they may have put some other forms of capital. How do you relate? How do you ensure that your relationship is actually supporting your business to grow? Because a lot of times I've seen businesses fail because they've just failed to manage relations amongst people who invested in a shared business or shared outcomes. Building resilience and adaptability, strategic leadership today requires sustaining vision and focus under or against the backdrop of increased uncertainty. And so, sustaining vision and focus becomes important. Empathy and complexity. Let me go to the last one, and then I'll shut the slides up and come to the So, how do we strengthen the structure of our business, which is another one? If you remind yourself that you're a steward of your business, you always want to strengthen that role that you play as a steward of your business, or the business and the value, the wealth you create, those that come out of it. So I've already said managing risks and finance, and I'll talk a little bit about finance. We normally talk about counting the money, but we never think of it as decision support. We never think of it as part of managing the risks. We never think of it as part of contributing to the value of the strategy that you are creating. All of that becomes emphasized if you are wanting to strengthen your stewardship. But we must also influence strategy and value. If you are leading, and if you're an entrepreneur, that's easy. But sometimes as you grow, the temptation is you start to have structures that make themselves become the undoing of your initial strategy. So it's very important to say, as you grow, you are still connecting with the strategy that you wanted for setting up the business, even as you now relate to structure. Because no one will have as clear vision as you, the entrepreneur. But you now need to ensure that the structures are also working to validate them in continuous strategic validation. So you can shut up this and you will get the presentation. But let me now come to some of the key decisions that one has to be making. And the first one that I've always seen people fail to make is the decision between living in the past and living in the now and into the future. When you start a business and you've gone through troubles and turmoil, that's experience, that's your history. But if you fail to decide to say, I am running this business for now and into the future, you may well be stuck in the past. And you start to say, oh, I lost money in 2008, oh, I did this. And you continuously remind yourself of those failures instead of learning from them and drawing a line and saying, yes, that's happened, but today I'm living in the now and into the future. And my business is living in the now and into the future. Now it makes a whole lot of difference. Because if you recognize that you are making or creating a legacy for now into the future, the choices and decisions you make are located properly. You are starting to say, what will I do today that creates the next 10 years? Instead of what was 2008, which is as the year. So that's the first one. But the second one I've always seen people struggle with is the choice between survival and resilience. The choice between survival and resilience. Now, if you are in a survival mode, you do what makes you survive for now. And next week, the things that you're trying to survive from are different. So you also change next week to try and survive next week's circumstances. But in business, even if sometimes we have to be conscious that you are in a survival mode to cross a phase, you need one eye and set of objectives that you are always alive, that is looking into how do I make this business resilient. And the weight of effort and focus I would like to posit must be more on the long term. And the short term is how you navigate to your long term. The third one, and it's probably more difficult, is a choice between doing the easy thing and doing the right thing in business. And I would like to say upfront, a successful business, and this is from experience and research, is a business that would have consistently made the right decisions even when they were not the easiest decisions or the easiest choices. Because it's very easy. When Vasco da Gama was traveling from Europe to India, the easiest path to follow would have been the path that the winds take him. Because then he would not need to do anything. Right? You just follow the wind. But that would not get him to India. But the right choice meant that at some of the times, the captain had to get his men to work against the storm and the winds to sustain a directional thrust, because that was the right course. So today in business, I see a lot of people make short-termist, easy decisions and choices. I'm happy that people in here at least have chosen to have a brand and be visible, and they've chosen to be formalized. But I've seen a lot of clever young people with brilliant ideas, brilliant products. They already have processes, and they've got a team and several people that they work with, and they're doing many things, but they are choosing to remain informal. Why? Because that's the easier thing. You avoid the taxes, you avoid the scrutiny, you do your things, you say, pay me cash. Cash is easier. But what they don't realize is by picking and selecting the easier one, they think they're hiding from Zimra, but they're also hiding from more customers. They're also hiding from more supports. They're also hiding from people that would help them succeed. So I talk to them, some of them, and I say, how do you want to succeed if you keep hiding yourself? And I tell them it's forgivable, and I'm sure that it must be understood that you start small, but I don't think it should be the case that you remain informal. Because by remaining informal, number one, you're shortchanging yourself. Beyond shortchanging yourself, you are not quite responsible in my view. Because after operating informal, You will want to use a formal hospital and see a formal doctor. She's a very formal doctor, the lady that came here, because she went to school, invested in that. You want to use a formal road, a formal clinic, and you remain informal. I think it's also irresponsible. So, but that's one example where people make the easier choice, but not the right choice. I've also seen people say, today this product is the easier one to sell. Zviuta, fashionable. Then when Zviuta are no longer fashionable, carpenter from Mozambique. So you change, you shift, and you are chasing the easier thing. By the time you get to the third thing, somebody now comes, Mr. Nyamaev comes and says, you sold me a sample of carpenter 3 years ago. Now I want a big order. And you tell them, no, I'm now doing second-hand clothes. So easier choices and doing your own efforts. So the choice between easier and right. But I also see that even in choices that we make in transacting, right? It's easier in very performance to say to him, I want this transaction, but what can I do for you and what can you do for me? Right? That's the easier way. That's the easier way, you will, because it's transactional. But is it the right way? Because how many people do you think Anglo-American would need to pay to grow to that level over time? And I've also argued that making consistent right decisions, not the easier ones, people will actually respect you for that. They respect you for that. And I can testify, no one comes to my office and tries to say, can I do this? Because they know that I will not do that. It's the easier thing, but it's not the right thing. And normally what happens when people do business that way, you flourish for a moment, you get a few deals for a moment, and then bang, all of that progress goes on a very small, easier choice that you think you're doing. The last one is a choice about what legacy is accompanying your business that you're running. What are you wanting to be known for? And that thing can't be, I made billions. I don't think that's what it is. It can't be, I made millions. It's important to make the money. But can you remember, just remind yourself, at a funeral, and at one at the moment, I never heard somebody say, Bagaita man. People want to look at Bagaita man. But they speak about impacts. They speak about what you have contributed to the next person. I hear people that work for businesses say, I was nurtured and groomed here. I hear customers that would say, they served me well. I hear regulators that might come and say, we never had issues. Those things, to me, become much more fulfillment than maybe sometimes what we think is the bigger deal. So locating the business and the effort in the context of what do I want to be known for? In other words, what will people write on that after I'm born? And they will not go to the cemetery and see dollar signs. But it's not to discount it. I'm just saying we must locate all of this within the bigger context of what I want to be known for. Let me end here and close so that we may have questions. But Bishop, thank you very much. Because you know what, I'm also very happy because Kiaran and I are the first speakers that we are told at an inaugural function, which I'm sure is going to grow. This room is going to be very small. In fact, in 3 sessions or so, I think this room will be small. So we might have to think of another venue or another different time. And I would like to wish this effort all success. Thank you very much.
You've united us. I believe by the end of this day, you should have brought to someone understanding the foundation that we are laying. We're not only doing it for us now, but for the generation. And the youngsters that are here, they are learning. I believe you have grasping one or two things from our speakers that should implement as you start. Some are still in school, some are already in business, but let's do it right. Like he has highlighted, let's formalize everything. Let's create the program to get to both I believe so. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put that in here to give us
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much to our speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close this enough now, business pitch, I believe we have all benefited in one way or the other in networking, and we have all seen the essence of why this is important, not only to yourself, but to the next person standing right before you. You are the marketer of your neighbor's business. What this essentially means is that you grow well when the other business is growing well. So when we collaborate and join efforts together, all our businesses are going to succeed. And if our businesses succeed, it means Zimbabwe is on a roadmap of success because we are working as a team, we are collaborating on our efforts, and we are putting all our resources together to make Zimbabwe great. Last I checked, Zimbabwe's GDP was now said to be 44 billion. And I was asking myself, how much of that 44 billion are we as business people here in Shiloh or in the AFF controlling? If we can only control just 500 million of that GDP within our network, even here as Shiloh business community, as a community, we are on the roadmap to success. So ladies and gentlemen, this is our first edition, and we are hoping so much that you will continue to support this great initiative, you will continue to participate. What we look forward to the next event is that we are going to be circulating at your company premises, holding these breakfast meetings right at your company doorstep and inviting everyone at your company. So make appointments with us, tell us when you are free, tell us when you are comfortable, we check with our diaries, and we come to business premises and host us, we conduct these business breakfast meetings at your premises because we want to get to know each other. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment in time to welcome on board our doctor, Mr. Digenya, who's going to give good appreciation to our guests for coming to this ceremony. I'm trying to be disciplined. I'm a lawyer, I paid to talk, so I can talk all day. Thank you so much. Once again, let's put our hands together for our guest speakers. So as we leave this room, we have prepared teas and snacks right in the next room.